James Whitaker and Claire Dawson appeared to be ordinary warehouse employees, but beneath their everyday routines hid secrets that would shock the entire UK. From frozen crates to hidden fortunes, their world of deception and danger is about to be exposed like never before. In the quiet outskirts of Manchester, a warehouse stood unremarkable among the cluster of industrial buildings. Its gray metal exterior and faded signage gave no hint of the secrets it held within. During the day, delivery trucks rolled in and out. Workers unloaded crates of frozen vegetables, meats, and seafood, and the building hummed with the mundane rhythm of a typical food distribution center. Locals passed by without a second glance, believing it to be just another part of the city's everyday operations. No one suspected that beneath the ordinary routines, something far more sinister was taking place. The warehouse had been carefully chosen for its inconspicuous location. Far from residential areas and away from constant scrutiny, it allowed operations to continue with minimal interruption. Inside, the temperature remained frozen, preserving the goods as they would be sent across the country. Crates were stacked high, labeled with generic product names, and scanners verified the shipments as they moved in and out. Everything appeared legitimate. To the outside world, the warehouse was a symbol of routine commerce. Yet beneath the surface, a highly organized smuggling operation had been quietly thriving. The mastermind behind this scheme was meticulous, leaving nothing to chance. Every detail, from the timing of shipments to the selection of trusted employees, was carefully orchestrated. Packages containing illegal drugs were disguised as ordinary frozen goods, slipped into the supply chain in such a way that even the most diligent inspections would likely overlook them. For years, the operation had evaded authorities, relying on the trust and complacency of those who crossed its path. The warehouse's unremarkable exterior became a shield, hiding the enormous value of what lay inside. Employees went about their daily tasks, unaware of the true nature of the shipments they handled. Forklifts moved pallets with precision. Inventory was meticulously recorded, and the hum of refrigeration units filled the air. Every corner of the warehouse seemed ordinary, yet each movement was part of a larger, hidden plan. The drugs were carefully packaged, frozen to prevent detection, and integrated seamlessly with legitimate products. Each shipment carried a portion of the illicit load, ensuring that the operation could continue without drawing suspicion. Even the security measures, designed to protect valuable food products, inadvertently aided the smugglers. Surveillance cameras monitored activity, access codes controlled entry, and staff followed strict protocols, all while unknowingly shielding a criminal enterprise. The warehouse operated under a veil of normality, a testament to how well the operation had been constructed. No police reports, no missing goods, and no public complaints existed to hint at the dark activities hidden behind the industrial facade. The sheer audacity of the scheme was staggering. While authorities focused on known crime hotspots, this warehouse thrived in plain sight. The mastermind had studied the system, exploiting the blind spots in inspections and leveraging the trust of employees. In this quiet corner of Manchester, a criminal empire had been silently built, concealed beneath crates of frozen food and layers of bureaucracy. The scale and precision of the operation suggested that this was not a hastily conceived plan, but a long-term strategy, carefully executed to maximize profit and minimize exposure. For months, the warehouse continued its operations without incident, a ticking time bomb waiting for discovery. To the casual observer, it remained just another industrial building, mundane and unremarkable. Yet within its walls, a dangerous conspiracy thrived, hidden in plain sight. The story of this warehouse would eventually reveal the shocking extent to which ordinary commerce could be exploited, exposing a criminal network that had been operating undetected for years. The unassuming facade masked a calculated and sophisticated operation, one that would shake the city and the country once it was finally uncovered. The evening sky hung low over Manchester as the warehouse prepared for its routine night shipments. Workers moved quickly to load the last pallets onto waiting trucks, their breath visible in the cold air. Everything seemed ordinary, part of the daily grind that went unnoticed by the city outside. Yet, this night would mark the beginning of a series of events that would slowly unravel the carefully hidden conspiracy. One shipment, in particular, seemed slightly off. The crate had been scheduled for standard inspection, but at the last minute, its paperwork had been altered. A new label had been applied, weight measurements slightly adjusted, and the expected destination changed by someone with access to the system. It was a subtle anomaly, almost imperceptible to anyone not paying close attention. A transport supervisor, responsible for overseeing the outgoing trucks, noticed the irregularity. The crate felt heavier than it should have, and a faint alarm from the metal detector caught his attention. The workers dismissed it at first, assuming it was a minor glitch in the machinery, but the supervisor's instincts told him something was wrong. Despite his experience in the industry, he couldn't immediately place why the shipment was suspicious. The crate was sealed and labeled as frozen meat, a common and unremarkable product. No one could have predicted what lay beneath the icy exterior, a massive stash of cocaine, carefully packaged to withstand freezing temperatures and inspection. Inside the warehouse, the scale of the operation began to reveal itself. This shipment was just one of dozens moved that night, all using the same method of concealment. Each crate contained small, vacuum-sealed packages of drugs, hidden among ordinary food items. The precision and planning behind the operation were astonishing. Whoever had orchestrated this had considered every possible obstacle, from routine inspections to security cameras, ensuring that the shipments would remain undetected. The supervisor, unaware of the full scope, simply noted the irregular weight and marked it for further review, unknowingly stepping closer to uncovering the criminal network. As the trucks departed, carrying their frozen cargo to destinations across the UK, the crate remained under scrutiny. The supervisor's decision to flag it for inspection set in motion a chain reaction. Authorities were eventually contacted, and investigators began to examine the shipment. For the first time, law enforcement saw tangible evidence of the hidden operation. What initially appeared to be a minor logistical irregularity quickly escalated into a major discovery. The sheer audacity of using everyday food shipments to smuggle drugs stunned everyone involved. The investigation revealed that the criminals had exploited weaknesses in the supply chain, using standard procedures and employee complacency to their advantage. The operation had been designed to blend seamlessly with legitimate commerce, and the warehouse itself acted as a perfect cover. By altering paperwork and carefully controlling access to sensitive shipments, the masterminds ensured that the drugs could move without detection for months, even years. This single suspicious delivery became the first crack in a sophisticated and dangerous conspiracy. It exposed the vulnerabilities of an entire system and highlighted the meticulous planning behind a network that had evaded authorities for so long. From that moment on, law enforcement began to piece together the operation, uncovering a tangled web of deception, corruption, and criminal ingenuity that would shake Manchester and the UK more than anyone could have imagined. As investigators dug deeper into the suspicious shipment, it became clear that the frozen drugs operation was far more elaborate than anyone had imagined. What initially seemed like a single act of smuggling quickly revealed itself as part of a sprawling network, with connections stretching across multiple warehouses, transport routes, and even government offices. The investigators discovered that the operation was not run by a small group of street-level criminals, but orchestrated by individuals who understood the complexities of supply chains and the vulnerabilities within them. Every shipment was carefully planned, every employee involved either complicit or carefully manipulated, and every security measure cleverly bypassed. The scale of the conspiracy sent shockwaves through law enforcement and left everyone questioning how such a sophisticated scheme could have gone unnoticed for so long. Evidence began to surface of bribery and corruption that extended beyond the warehouse walls. Transport managers, security personnel, and even a few officials responsible for regulatory oversight had been secretly paid to turn a blind eye. Large sums of money moved quietly between accounts, disguised as routine business transactions, making it nearly impossible to trace. Employees who might have raised concerns were intimidated, either directly or indirectly, ensuring silence throughout the operation. The investigators realized that this was not a crime of opportunity. It was a meticulously constructed empire built on secrecy, loyalty, and fear. The warehouses themselves formed a chain of hidden waypoints. Drugs moved from one location to another under the guise of ordinary shipments, with each warehouse acting as a temporary storage point before the cargo continued its journey. The network was designed so that even if one warehouse was discovered, the rest of the system could continue operating without interruption. Investigators were astonished at the level of organization. Maps, schedules, and coded communication systems revealed that the mastermind had anticipated every possible scenario, creating multiple layers of security to protect the operation. It was a criminal network operating in plain sight, hidden behind the very infrastructure meant to deliver food to the nation. Even more troubling was the realization that the drugs were reaching ordinary consumers. High-end restaurants, supermarkets, and even hospitals unknowingly received shipments that contained illegal narcotics. The criminals' clever packaging ensured that nothing appeared out of place. Frozen vegetables, meats, and seafood served as perfect camouflage. Authorities struggled to comprehend how easily these shipments could infiltrate the supply chain without raising alarms. The audacity of the smugglers was staggering. They were exploiting the trust inherent in everyday commerce, turning ordinary distribution systems into conduits for crime. As the investigation progressed, law enforcement began to connect the dots between financial records, shipment logs, and surveillance footage. Patterns emerged, pointing to a hierarchy of operatives who each played a distinct role in the conspiracy. The warehouse workers were pawns, the transport managers were facilitators, and higher-level coordinators pulled the strings from offices far removed from the crime scenes. This revelation deepened the sense of unease. The conspiracy was not just a criminal enterprise. It was a demonstration of how corruption and careful planning could transform ordinary systems into instruments of deception. The web of corruption, bribery, and meticulous organization made the frozen drugs operation one of the most sophisticated crimes the UK had ever faced. Investigators realized that dismantling it would require patience, precision, and an unwavering commitment to uncovering every hidden link. The deeper they delved, the more they understood that the conspiracy's reach was terrifyingly vast, and the true extent of its operations might never be fully known. Yet one thing was certain. The frozen facade of normality had been shattered, exposing a criminal empire hiding in plain sight, ready to challenge the limits of law enforcement at every turn. The smugglers' methods were ingenious, relying on the most ordinary aspects of everyday commerce to conceal their illegal activities. Within the frozen food warehouse, crates were carefully packed with products that looked completely legitimate: vegetables, fish, meat, and ready-made meals. But hidden inside each crate, vacuum-sealed packages of narcotics lay frozen, blending seamlessly with the legitimate goods. Even the most experienced inspectors would have found it nearly impossible to detect the contraband without prior knowledge. The smugglers had studied the supply chain in detail, identifying vulnerabilities and designing their system to exploit them with precision. The sophistication of the operation was staggering. Each shipment followed a meticulously planned route, often passing through multiple warehouses across different regions before reaching its final destination. At each stop, the packages were scanned and logged in a manner that mimicked normal inventory procedures. Employees, unaware of what they were handling, simply moved the crates according to schedule. To the outside observer, the shipments were routine, and any attempt to investigate further would have appeared unnecessary or overly cautious. This clever integration into the legitimate distribution network allowed the smugglers to operate under the radar for months, if not years, without raising suspicion. High-end restaurants, supermarkets, and even some hospitals unknowingly received these shipments. For the smugglers, targeting such establishments was strategic. These businesses required frequent deliveries of frozen goods, providing a continuous flow of shipments that could be manipulated without attracting attention. By integrating the illegal packages with everyday products, the smugglers ensured that their operation remained invisible, hidden behind layers of legitimate commerce. It was a chilling reminder of how criminal enterprises could exploit systems designed to serve the public. Investigators were shocked to discover the level of planning involved. The drugs were frozen to maintain their quality, but this also made detection more difficult. Traditional inspection methods were ineffective against such clever concealment, and even advanced scanning equipment sometimes failed to identify the contraband. The smugglers had essentially weaponized ordinary commerce, turning food supply networks into conduits for criminal activity. Each shipment was a testament to their meticulous planning, careful execution, and deep understanding of the systems they were exploiting. The investigation revealed another disturbing layer. The operation had been running for over 2 years. Hundreds of kilos of narcotics had moved through the supply chain, reaching unsuspecting consumers without incident. The smugglers had calculated every risk, ensuring that even minor errors could be corrected before detection. Every employee who might have noticed something unusual was either complicit or carefully manipulated, ensuring silence and cooperation. This degree of control over the workforce and the distribution system demonstrated the mastermind as extraordinary foresight and cunning. As authorities examined the evidence, the sheer audacity of the operation became clear. The smugglers had turned ordinary, everyday systems into instruments of deception. The network was not just about moving drugs. It was about creating an invisible empire that could function undisturbed for years. The chilling realization settled over investigators. The criminals had exploited society's trust in routine processes, hiding a dangerous conspiracy in plain sight. By the time law enforcement began piecing together the operation, the extent of the conspiracy was staggering. The frozen crates that once seemed harmless were now evidence of a criminal enterprise of unprecedented sophistication. Each shipment told a story of deception, meticulous planning, and exploitation of human trust. The realization that such an operation could thrive undetected for so long left authorities both impressed and horrified, knowing that uncovering the full scope would be one of the most challenging investigations of their careers. The investigation had reached a frustrating standstill. Despite months of surveillance, financial tracking, and shipment monitoring, law enforcement struggled to identify the full scope of the frozen drugs operation. Every lead seemed to hit a dead end, and the criminals' meticulous planning made it nearly impossible to uncover the mastermind behind the conspiracy. Then, unexpectedly, a breakthrough arrived in the form of a whistleblower, an employee who had worked at one of the key warehouses for over a year. Fearful for their safety, yet determined to expose the truth, the individual chose to contact the authorities anonymously, providing the first concrete inside information that could pierce the veil of secrecy. The whistleblower's testimony was detailed and precise. They described specific shipments, including dates, destinations, and the coded methods used to conceal the drugs. They revealed the internal hierarchy within the warehouse, explaining who was responsible for moving the packages, who oversaw storage, and who controlled the documentation. Most importantly, they disclosed how the organization used legitimate business operations as camouflage, blending illicit activity with ordinary shipments of frozen goods. The insider's account offered law enforcement a roadmap into an operation that had previously seemed impenetrable. Investigators immediately began cross-referencing the information with existing surveillance footage, inventory logs, and shipment records. The connections were undeniable. Patterns emerged that had previously gone unnoticed. Certain employees consistently handled shipments flagged by the whistleblower. Specific trucks were repeatedly used for suspect deliveries, and certain warehouses acted as temporary storage hubs for illicit cargo. The whistleblower had not only confirmed suspicions, but had also provided actionable intelligence that allowed authorities to move from theory to concrete evidence. The revelations were chilling. The whistleblower described the methods used to intimidate employees, ensuring silence through fear of retaliation. With the whistleblower's guidance, law enforcement began tracking active shipments in real time. They monitored vehicles, scanned deliveries, and mapped the complex routes used to move the frozen drugs across the UK. Each step uncovered further layers of the conspiracy, revealing a system designed to absorb scrutiny and redirect attention. The investigation shifted into high gear, moving from passive observation to active disruption. Authorities could now anticipate the smugglers' moves and prepare coordinated interventions, increasing the pressure on the criminal network. The whistleblower's courage transformed the investigation. What had once seemed like a cold trail of vague anomalies now became a path illuminated with evidence. Investigators could finally see the inner workings of the operation, from warehouse managers to transport coordinators, and identify the weakest links in the conspiracy. The anonymous employee's information had not only provided clarity, but had also introduced an element of vulnerability within the criminal network. For the first time, authorities sensed that the operation could be dismantled, and that justice for the millions of pounds worth of illegal drugs moving through ordinary food shipments was finally within reach. This pivotal moment marked a turning point in the case. The whistleblower had risked everything to expose the truth, and their courage set the stage for the dramatic raids and arrests that would soon follow. Law enforcement now had the insight, the strategy, and the evidence needed to challenge a criminal operation that had thrived in the shadows for years, and the next steps would reveal just how audacious and dangerous the mastermind truly was. In the early hours of a foggy Manchester morning, law enforcement officers moved with precision and urgency. Months of surveillance, intelligence gathering, and painstaking planning had led to this moment. Coordinated raids were set to target multiple warehouses across the UK simultaneously. Each location had been identified through a combination of shipment tracking, financial records, and the invaluable information provided by the whistleblower. The operation required careful timing. Any misstep could allow the smugglers to destroy evidence or escape, erasing months of investigative work in an instant. At the first warehouse, police officers entered quietly, bypassing the usual entrances and using back doors identified in prior reconnaissance. Inside, the scene was almost surreal. Crates of frozen vegetables, meats, and seafood were stacked neatly, completely ordinary to an untrained eye. But officers knew what to look for. Behind ordinary labels and packaging, thousands of pounds worth of narcotics were hidden in vacuum-sealed bags. Each shipment was catalogued meticulously by the smugglers, demonstrating their meticulous attention to detail. The discovery stunned even experienced investigators. The criminals had relied on routine procedures and human complacency to hide their operation, and the extent of their planning was almost unimaginable. Simultaneously, teams moved on other warehouses across the country. Each raid followed a precise plan, targeting key locations that acted as distribution points within the network. Officers discovered hidden compartments, altered packaging, and falsified records. The sophistication of the operation became evident with every warehouse entered. It was no longer just about smuggling drugs. It was a full-scale criminal enterprise embedded within legitimate business operations. The raids confirmed suspicions that the frozen food supply chain had been exploited in ways authorities had never encountered before. Despite the swift arrests and confiscation of millions of pounds worth of drugs, the mastermind behind the operation remained elusive. Investigators realized that the network had contingency plans in place. As soon as one warehouse was compromised, shipments were redirected to alternative locations, ensuring the operation could continue temporarily, even under pressure. It became clear that dismantling the entire conspiracy would require patience and methodical analysis. The raids had struck a significant blow, but the criminal network's reach and adaptability meant the investigation was far from over. The raids also revealed disturbing evidence of how the criminals had manipulated their employees. Many workers were complicit, either through bribery or intimidation, and some were unwitting participants in the smuggling process. Authorities documented testimonies and gathered evidence to differentiate between those who had knowingly participated and those who were coerced. The complexity of human involvement added a new layer to the investigation, highlighting the moral and ethical dilemmas faced by law enforcement in prosecuting such a widespread conspiracy. Financial records obtained during the raids exposed another dimension of the operation. Large sums of money had been moved discreetly, disguised as normal business transactions. The funds flowed through multiple accounts, making it difficult to trace the full scope of the profits. This revealed the economic sophistication of the operation, showing that the masterminds were not only skilled at hiding drugs, but also adept at laundering the proceeds without attracting attention. The sudden raids marked a turning point in the investigation. Law enforcement had taken the first decisive steps toward dismantling the frozen drugs empire, seizing key evidence and disrupting the network's operations. Yet, the realization that the mastermind remained free weighed heavily on the investigators. While the raids exposed the infrastructure and scope of the conspiracy, they also revealed how carefully planned and audacious the operation had been. The stage was set for the shocking revelations to come, as authorities dug deeper to uncover the true identity of the person orchestrating this elaborate criminal enterprise. Months of investigation, raids, and evidence gathering had finally brought authorities closer to the truth, but nothing could have prepared them for the shocking revelation that awaited. The mastermind behind the frozen drugs conspiracy was not a notorious crime lord, a shadowy foreign syndicate, or a violent gang leader. Instead, it was someone who had cultivated the appearance of an ordinary businessman, respected in the community, with multiple legitimate food distribution companies under their name. Publicly, this individual was known for supplying high-quality frozen goods to restaurants, supermarkets, and even hospitals across the UK. Behind closed doors, however, they orchestrated a sophisticated empire of illegal drug trafficking, exploiting the very businesses they owned as camouflage. Investigators were stunned by the audacity and cunning of the operation. The mastermind had created layers of compartmentalization, ensuring that few people understood the full extent of the enterprise. Each employee knew only what they needed to know, reducing the risk of exposure. The combination of fear, loyalty, and deception allowed the operation to function smoothly for years, all while authorities remained unaware. Financial investigations uncovered a similarly meticulous strategy. The mastermind had integrated illicit profits with legitimate business transactions, moving large sums through multiple accounts and companies. By disguising drug money as routine income from food distribution, they effectively hid the scale of the operation from both law enforcement and financial regulators. The audacity of turning legitimate commerce into a laundering mechanism demonstrated not only greed, but also a deep understanding of systems that most criminals would never master. Perhaps most disturbing was the realization that the mastermind's public persona had helped shield the operation. Community leaders, clients, and even government officials trusted this individual, seeing them as a model businessman. That trust became an invisible shield, allowing illegal activities to continue under the guise of normality. For the authorities, it was a lesson in the dangers of deception and the complexity of human behavior. How someone could appear ordinary while orchestrating extraordinary criminality. The revelation sent shockwaves through the UK, Media outlets reported on the story with disbelief. Neighbors and business associates struggled to reconcile the public image with the hidden reality, and law enforcement officials were forced to confront the limits of traditional investigative methods. This individual had exploited society's assumptions about ordinary people, using trust and routine as tools to hide a sprawling criminal empire. As the investigation moved toward arrests and prosecution, the focus shifted to dismantling the remaining infrastructure of the network. While the mastermind's identity had finally been revealed, the implications were vast. The case exposed not only a massive drug trafficking operation, but also the vulnerability of everyday systems to exploitation. It became a chilling reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that even the most ordinary person may be capable of extraordinary crimes. The UK had been shaken, and the story of the frozen drugs conspiracy would become a cautionary tale for years to come. The aftermath of the frozen drugs conspiracy sent ripples throughout the UK, leaving both the public and authorities in shock. Following the arrests and raids, the legal proceedings began, revealing the full extent of the operation in court. Employees who had knowingly participated faced prison sentences, while those coerced into involvement were given lighter penalties or offered protection in exchange for testimony. The mastermind, once hidden behind the facade of a respected businessman, faced multiple charges, ranging from large-scale drug trafficking to money laundering and conspiracy. The case became one of the most high-profile criminal trials in recent British history, attracting intense media coverage and public attention. Authorities moved swiftly to shut down the warehouses and distribution centers involved in the operation. Facilities that had once been hubs of clandestine activity were permanently closed, and stringent inspections were implemented across the food supply chain to prevent similar schemes from occurring. The case forced regulators and law enforcement agencies to reevaluate standard procedures, highlighting weaknesses that had allowed the conspiracy to thrive for years. New protocols for shipment verification, employee background checks, and surveillance measures were introduced, aiming to restore public confidence in everyday systems and to prevent ordinary business networks from being exploited in such a dangerous manner again. The impact on the community was profound. Restaurants, supermarkets, and other businesses that had unknowingly received shipments containing drugs faced scrutiny and reputational damage. Many feared that customers would lose trust in the safety of their products, even though they had been entirely unaware of the illegal activities. Meanwhile, neighbors and associates of the mastermind struggled to reconcile the shocking revelations with their previous impressions of the individual. The case became a cautionary tale, demonstrating how appearances can be deceiving and how ordinary systems and people can be manipulated for extraordinary criminal purposes. Financial investigations continued long after the raids, as authorities worked to trace the illicit funds and dismantle the money laundering network. While a significant portion of the profits was recovered, the complexity of the operation meant that some money remained unaccounted for. The case highlighted the sophisticated financial planning behind large-scale criminal enterprises and the need for vigilance in monitoring business transactions for signs of illegal activity. It also emphasized the importance of international cooperation, as parts of the operation involved cross-border shipments and financial channels. The frozen drugs conspiracy left lasting lessons for law enforcement, regulatory agencies, and the public. It illustrated how a criminal network could exploit trust, routine procedures, and ordinary business operations to move large quantities of illegal substances undetected. It also underscored the critical role of whistleblowers in uncovering hidden crimes, showing how insider knowledge can tip the balance in complex investigations. For authorities, the case became a benchmark in strategic planning, surveillance, and investigative coordination, shaping approaches to tackling similar crimes in the future. Even years later, the story of the frozen drugs operation remains a chilling reminder of how easily criminal enterprises can hide in plain sight. It exposed vulnerabilities within society and commerce, demonstrating that even the most mundane activities, receiving a shipment of frozen vegetables or unpacking crates of seafood, can be exploited by those with knowledge, cunning, and audacity. The conspiracy's revelation reshaped public awareness and law enforcement strategies alike, leaving a permanent mark on the UK's approach to crime prevention. It warned that vigilance, transparency, and accountability are essential at every level of business and society. Ultimately, the story highlighted both the ingenuity of criminals and the resilience of the authorities determined to bring them to justice, ensuring that even the most sophisticated operations cannot remain hidden forever.